And we have Throwing Shade. Going to have a great show. Jack Gentry is in for Zach Bingham once again. Zach is in Dallas. He'll be back on Friday as he flies back during the show tomorrow morning on a Thursday. So Jack Gentry from the Tighten Up podcast with a new episode out today. So I'll let Jack kind of tease that here in a little bit with the new Tighten Up pod. But we are talking Titans today and how they really, where do the Titans stand among the AFC powerhouses in the conference through 3 weeks? Because it's kind of great because everybody has a gut feeling on who the best teams are in the conference before the season starts. And the Titans are among the top 5 in the AFC before the season started. And everybody in those top 5 has at least one loss, and one of them has 2 losses. Then we'll get through that. So where the Titans are among the AFC powerhouses after 3 weeks. And then we've got 4 AFC teams that we want to know if they are playoff contenders or pretenders. So 4 AFC teams, including 2 undefeateds, that we want to know if they contenders or pretenders. Overall, Jack, today we're talking about 9 AFC teams. There's only 7 AFC playoff spots. So 2 of the teams we're talking about will not make the playoffs, maybe even more. So we'll dive into that a lot today and have a good show. And then it is Wednesday, so it's Throwing Shade. So I've got shade. I've got video to go along with my shade. And Jack, I think you're going to agree with me. I think you're going to agree with my shade and be all about it. Assad, real quick, says the Titans aren't even in the top 10. Assad, we're talking AFC today. The Titans are absolutely in the top 10 of the American Football Conference. Absolutely. Now, if you're going to do NFL power rankings, sure, I don't think the Titans deserve to be in the top 10 of that, but absolutely in the top 10 of the AFC. So, Jack, welcome in. Hope you're having a good start to your Wednesday.
Absolutely, and I love talking early in the season. We're not even a quarter way through. We're already talking about who's going to make the playoffs. I love it. It's a 17-game season for the first time in NFL history, but it's never too early to start. Welcome in. While you guys are trickling in, I want you guys to share the show. We need a lot of opinions today. This is going to be a very opinionated, heavy show. Really excited to talk about all these different teams, where the Titans stand amongst some of these big powerhouses in the AFC. So while you're coming in, share the show on Facebook, retweet on Twitter. Let's grow this conversation. Let's have a ton of fun today. Glad you guys are here. Let's be active in the chat today.
Yes, we're going to have a good show, so let's get it going officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered by BetMGM. I'm Austin Stanley. He's Jack Gentry of the Tighten Up Podcast in for Zach Bingham. Make sure you follow us all over social media, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. We go live every weekday morning at 8 Central Time. Also hit us up on Instagram and TikTok. We're Nashville's on-demand sports talk network. Let's thank our sponsors before we get officially going this morning. Renters Warehouse Nashville, the professional landlords in the Nashville area. Renterswarehouse.com is to find out how much your home can rent for. Mandu, the Pulse of Fitness, where 1 15-minute workout equals 5 or more hours in the weight room. Mandu.com. Your first workout is absolutely free. Wilson County Hyundai. If you're looking for a new ride, simply head out to Lebanon or go to wilsoncountyhyundai.com. And the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. So, Jack, before we dive into where the Titans stack up among the AFC powerhouses, the new Tighten Up podcast out this morning. Give the people a little tease of what they should be doing after today's morning show to go listen to you and Austin Huff.
Guys, the time is now. NWI scored his first career touchdown. Austin and I had a ton of fun this week. We promised that if that happened, Joe Rexrode would come back on. Joe stops by for a few minutes. We talk about the game. The turnovers are a problem, obviously. You lose A.J. Brown, but the replacements, the guys like Nick Westbrook-Akine, Ola Adaney, Jeremy McNichols, Michael Pruitt are all stepping up and making big plays when it matters. Taylor Lewan, he responded to being booed in his return at Nissan Stadium. We talk about that, whether it was right, whether it was wrong. Just a ton of stuff. Isaiah Wilson, by the way, he worked out for the Colts this week. You know, we had some fun with that.
And the Giants.
And the Giants. Yeah. 2 0-3 teams. So that kind of tells you where those teams are at in terms of desperation. But yeah, go listen. It's a fun episode. We had a ton of fun doing it, and I know you guys will have a ton of fun listening. It's a podcast where, you know, we're not going to give you all of the in-depth statistics, but we have a ton of fun talking. And I believe that it's an enjoyable listen for any and all Titans fans. So if you hadn't heard it, go listen to it. If you have heard it, we appreciate you. Keep listening. We're going to have a ton of fun for the rest of the season. This week was no different.
Yeah, so I would highly suggest you guys going and checking out the Tighten Up podcast every Wednesday, hosted by Jack Gentry and Austin Huff. So we have 2 Zachs, 2 Austins, a Jack, and many other names with A to Z Sports. So all right, let's dive into this conversation. So where do the Titans stack up? How do they stack up against the AFC's top teams, right? Because I think we can understand the consensus going into this season that we thought the top 2 teams in the AFC were going to be the Chiefs and the Bills, who were in the AFC title game a year ago. Then after that is a certain, in whatever order, is the Titans, the Browns, the Ravens, right? I think that is the Titans, Browns, and Ravens are kind of that second tier of AFC teams behind Chiefs and Bills. Right now, all 5 of those teams, at least 1 loss. The Chiefs have actually lost 2 in a row. And so they're 1-2, the first time that they've lost in September since Mahomes has been the starter. So it's very interesting, Jack. What's your overall opinion about, like, just from a bird's eye perspective on the Titans' first 3 weeks compared to some of these other teams' first 3 weeks where everybody has a blemish on their resume?
Yeah, none of these top 5 teams are really complete at this point in the season, and nor should they be. I mean, contenders typically try and bring in pieces in the offseason to fit their mold and really elevate their team to a Super Bowl contending team. And while only one team can make it out of the AFC, these 5 teams all have a shot right now, and I think a few more than others. And when it comes to the Titans, we haven't really been given a full glimpse of what these new acquisitions can do so far. Bud Dupree, he hasn't really been active. He's coming off an ACL. Julio Jones, they're being careful with him now. We saw the flashes that he made in week 2. After a disappointing week 1, he really showed, him and Tannehill, that connection is building. It's growing. It's still not there yet. And now, of course, A.J. Brown goes down. So it's going to be tough, really, for the first half of the season to kind of gauge where the Titans stand as a complete team. But when you're comparing them to some of these other teams, in the Titans' case, we're talking about the Bills, the Chiefs, the Browns, and the Ravens, right? I believe that they're somewhere in the middle. They're obviously not 1 or 2, but I don't think they're 5 either now. Whether or not we'll get into where exactly I have these teams, but
right,
the Titans still have room to grow, and these other teams, some are a little more shaky than others. The Chiefs have a losing record. They've lost back-to-back games for the first time since I can remember.
Yeah, and they've lost to 2 good teams, right? Like the Ravens and then the Chargers. And the Chargers have had the Chiefs number the last several years of being able to beat the Chiefs at least one time over the last few years. So that's something surprising. I think it's just surprising that it came on the heels of the first loss. But the Chiefs have a great win because beating the Browns in week 1 is a good win. So who has the best loss out of these teams, right? Because everybody's got one. The Titans got blown out by the Cardinals. The Bills lost to the Steelers, who don't look very good right now. We just talked about the Chiefs losing to the Ravens and then losing to the Chargers. And then you've got the Ravens. Who'd the Ravens lose to?
The Raiders.
The Raiders, right?
And the week 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then week 1, Monday night, I believe. And then you've got who else am I missing in this conversation? I guess the Chiefs that we've talked about, but who has the best loss? Because like the Cardinals are good, right? Like I think we've established that the Cardinals have a really good team, but they got blown out by 25 points because Dom says the Titans have the best loss, honestly. I mean, you can say that, like they maybe lost to the best team.
But the way they lost.
But the way they lost was so non-competitive that it has to hurt.
Yes, I agree with you. The way they lost there rules the Titans out because these other teams have close losses. With the Bills, their only loss was to the Steelers in week 1, and it really came on the heels of a blocked punt, which you're lucky to see 6-7 times in a season. So while that was a fluke play, the Bills didn't really bring it week 1. They're in the conversation. With the Ravens, they went to Las Vegas week 1 when they're opening up Las Vegas' stadium to the fans with one of the buffers in the building. I mean, it was the stars were out in Vegas on Monday night. That was a tough place to play. They played them to the wire. The Browns lost to the Chiefs. I think it's the Browns with the best loss here because, that was a game that they were controlling for 3 quarters.
Yeah, and it was on the road. It was in Kansas City too. And so I think you're right. That's where I was going to land is the Browns have the best loss of these teams. And so I think, it's very interesting. So let's just go ahead and do this, Jack. Let's ask everybody, where do the Titans rank among these top 5 AFC teams? Where do the Titans rank among these top 5 AFC teams? We've been listing them. We've got the Bills, the Browns, the Ravens, and the Chiefs, and the Titans. So where are they ranking in these top 5 teams? Real quick, let me tell you guys about our friends at the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Go to who you should trust whenever that injury happens to you in life. Injuries do happen in life, unfortunately, so you just have to know who to trust who to go to. And the Bone and Joint Institute streamlines the process. They do everything at their one facility. They don't send you all over town to different places for your imaging, for your testing, for your rehab, for the surgery itself. They do everything right there and keep it all in-house to make it easy on you, the patient. boneandjointtn.org is where to go.
BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks, guys. I'm telling y'all, BetMGM is an app you need to go ahead and download if you haven't already. The selection, the variety, the ability to do in-game parlays over there where other sportsbooks may not have that. It's all elevated. BetMGM does things a little bit more at an elite level than others, and you really need to go experience that. Go use promo code A to Z Sports when you sign up. And you'll receive, I believe it's A to Z 200 with your first deposit. You'll have a chance to, you'll get $200 with your first deposit.
Well, right now, Jack, today it's ATOZ Sports for a risk-free bet up to $1,000 today.
And that's even better.
Yeah, the $200 bet was from Monday Night Football, and actually, I believe we have that coming up tomorrow night as well. Yeah, for Thursday Night Football. So
risk-free bet up to $1,000. You guys need to get in while the getting's good, and really have a chance to double your bankroll with that extra money you're getting. It's a ton of fun. Jump in now. A lot of football left in this season. You're going to want to be on an app to play some of these wagers.
That's right. BetMGM right there. All right, so let's get to it. Where do the Titans rank among these top 5 teams in the AFC? So those teams are, once again, just the Bills, the Browns, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Titans. Sean says 4th. If you guys want to go ahead and list them out, that would be great because, 4 is great, but we don't know who's ahead and who's below. Steven says top 4. Cassie says 4. Lane says 4. Noah, thanks, says Bills, Chiefs, Browns, then Titans and Ravens. Louis says top 3. Dom says Bills, Browns, Chiefs, Titans, Ravens. Marv says the Titans are 6th on YouTube. Maurice says 3rd. Ronnie says maybe 4th ahead of the Ravens. Andrew says the Ravens could easily be 0-3. A record field goal and a bad fumble by I don't know what you
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not used to seeing CEH is like the weirdest acronym I think I've ever seen in my life. Threw me off there for a second. Danny says Browns, Ravens, Bills, Titans, Chiefs. Danny has the Chiefs last. Dom says 4th of the Ravens. Stanley McMurray Jr. says put the Titans at 2nd behind Buffalo in the regular season last year and will probably beat them this year. Alonzo says top 4. So I think 4th is the most popular answer. Frank says top 5 at least. Yes, Frank. There are only 5 teams we're listing. So they're top 5 at least. That's true. So, Jack, what do you have the Titans at? With these teams that we're talking about, with the 2-1 teams of Bills, Browns, Ravens, and then the Chiefs who are 1-2, and then also the Titans who are at 2-1. How do you rank those 5?
So through 3 weeks in the season, we're kind of going off resumes at this point, correct? Like, what have you done so far in the season? And I get that some,
but also understanding
the talent,
yes,
gaps here, yes,
right?
Of course. So for me, I'll just go down the list. I believe that the Bills right now have looked the best and have, if things stay the course, the Bills, I believe, will come out of the AFC. They've got a very easy schedule remaining. Their only loss to Pittsburgh, like I said earlier, was really courtesy of a blocked punt which is a bit of a fluky play. They turn around the next week where, that they could really let that linger and maybe let one loss turn to two. They shut out the Dolphins on the road, win 35-0. And then, of course, this past week, they dominated Washington by 22. Now, Washington isn't the team they were last year, but the Bills' big weakness is their run game. Well, they're 7th in the NFL right now in rushing yards. Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, I don't know that is something that they can keep up, but Josh Allen also factors into that, and you have to account for him. Their big offseason addition on offense was Emmanuel Sanders, who is tied for the team lead in receiving yards with Cole Beasley. There's a lot to like with the Bills, so that's why I have them number one. Number two, a lot of you guys may disagree. I have the Chiefs. I think you have to respect the Chiefs and what they've done over the last 3 seasons. Now, this year's a bit of a different Chiefs team. They only returned 1 starting offensive lineman. Their pass rush has taken a bit of a step back. They've only got 4 sacks through 3 games, which, Titans fans understand that you can't win without a pass rush against some of these mobile quarterbacks in the AFC. Now they add Josh Gordon. So the rich get a little bit richer, but is that a distraction? Will he kind of throw a wrench in things? And the big question mark for me with the Chiefs, what's going on with Andy Reid's health?
Right.
Because that's a huge question. I understand you have trust in Eric Bieniemy, but without Andy Reid back there, it's going to be tough. And without a really focused and dedicated Andy Reid, while he's got other distractions going on, I worry about them.
It sounds like he's going to be okay for the most
It sounds
part.
like he's going to be okay now. Yes, I understand, but it's still to me a bit weird because he was hospitalized for a couple days. The Titans I have at 3. Now, I only have them at 3 because of the quality of wins that they have. Going to Seattle and beating Russell Wilson, obviously the Colts coming to Nashville, the Titans had their way with them. But, outside of that 5-game gauntlet that we've been talking about since the schedule came out with Buffalo, Kansas City, Indianapolis, the Rams, the Saints, the rest of their games are pretty winnable. They're very winnable. So I believe the Titans can really do themselves a lot of favors in terms of seeding based on their schedule and based on how weak the division is. The pass rush is improved. We've seen it now. They're thin this week, and they're thin going forward. But 7 sacks through 3 games. I think you tell Titans fans that before the season, they all take it. No A.J. Brown. Bud and Julio still kind of getting used to things, getting back in the groove. We're going to wait on them. The Titans are a work in progress as is, but I'm comfortable putting them at 3. Behind them, I've got the Browns. Okay. The Browns have the best pass rush in the NFL, and then
I think the Browns need to be much higher than that. I think the Browns are the Titans right now.
Well, that's fine. The Browns haven't beaten anybody. The Browns beat the Texans and the Bears. I guess they played the Chiefs tight, and you can only play who's on your schedule, and you can only beat who's on your schedule. But I need to see them beat a good team because without Odell Beckham Jr. has been banged up, Jarvis Landry's always banged up. And Baker Mayfield, I still can't completely trust him in a big game. For whatever it is, I just don't trust him in a big game to throw for 350 if he has to. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, great backfield, best backfield in the NFL probably. I know Titans fans are going to get mad. You've got Derrick Henry, and he's better than everyone. But as a 1-2 tandem, the Browns got it. And then the Ravens come in at 5 for me. Cluster injuries, a big factor. Their weapons can't really be trusted. In their wins, their 2 wins came by 1 point and 2 points. So,
well, and you look at the Ravens and the Titans. The Ravens are 2-1. They have a point differential of -3. The Titans are 2-1 with a point differential of -13. Because obviously the blowout to the Cardinals really hurts the Titans when you look at the resume. I think like the Browns, the Bills are first, right? The Bills losing to the Steelers was bad and dumb and cost me money on the BetMGM app, but I'm over that. I moved forward because I won money off of them last week. But like the Bills are, I think, the best team in the AFC right now. I think second is the Browns to me. And I know the Chiefs beat the Browns, but I think the Browns are a very complete team with a good offensive line, a really strong running game, and an incredible defense. And that lasts the entire season. And they've got depth at those positions as well. And I trust Baker Mayfield to an extent, but the good thing is he didn't have to do all that much because of how the team is set up. So that elevates him. Ryan says he thinks Denver is top 5. We'll talk about the Broncos, the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Bengals in our next segment for contenders or pretenders. But here's how I'm going to do my 5. So I've got the Bills first, the Browns second, the Chiefs third, the Titans fourth, and the Ravens fifth in this conversation. I think the Ravens and how they were able to just squeak out a win over the Lions doesn't really help you out that much. Look, that win over the Chiefs was impressive and fun to watch. But again, I think the Ravens just have a lot of issues that they're going to have to deal with the deeper the season goes. So that's where I go. Bills, then Browns, then Chiefs, then Titans, and then the Ravens. Wrap it up. Nate says Austin literally wears a Bills jersey to bed. What what do I say that like is wrong about the Bills? Like
we both have Bills number 1 and Ravens.
Yeah, like what did I say that makes you think about that? Like, I mean, come on, that's so ridiculous there, Nate. Oh, like what? Why? Like I just said that they're the best team in the AFC right now.
Stay on them, Nate.
Yeah, shoot me right now because everybody else agreed on this. So I find that interesting. So let's move to this next discussion to get these other teams in here. Are these 4 AFC teams playoff contenders or pretenders? Because Scott says he would put the Chargers above the Ravens. So Ken asked, no Chargers? We're talking about them now because, again, this past conversation was about the teams that we thought highly of going into the year as the top tier AFC teams. Now these 4 that we're going to talk about next are kind of the surprise AFC teams. So that's what we're going to go into. Are these 4 teams contenders or pretenders for the playoffs? Are they contenders or pretenders for the playoffs? But real quick, let me tell you guys about Mandu, the Pulse of Fitness. 1 15-minute workout equals 5+ hours in the weight room. Mandu.com. Your first workout is absolutely free. So go check it out. It's full body electronic muscle stimulation. A great way to achieve your fitness goals. Seriously, they can help you out. Whatever your fitness goals might be, whether it's to trim that last little bit of body fat, add muscle mass, whatever it is to fully transform your body, they have the science and the trainers there to help you out at mandu.com. So your first workout's free. And if you tell them A to Z Sports sent you, they will give you $100 off your first month when you sign up right there at mandu.com.
BetMGM. Promo code A to Z Sports. This is going to get you a long way, guys. Use promo code A to Z Sports when you sign up, and you'll get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's a great value. You're not going to find that in many other places. Code A to Z Sports gets you put in 100, you'll get another 100 in free bets. You put in 1,000, you'll get another 1,000 in free bets. You get a lot of money to play with. You bet it over a few times, you can pull it all out. It's a great way to make money, great way to get started. And, it gives you a little cushion for some mulligans if maybe you lose a bet or get beat on a bad beat. So use promo code A to Z Sports. Download the BetMGM app, the king of sportsbooks. Trust me, you guys are going to love it.
All right, so who is a contender or a pretender? Let's start with the 3-0. We're just going to go from the top left, right? Let's start with the 3-0 Denver Broncos. Jack, do you think they are contenders or pretenders?
Pretenders. They are a fraudulent 3-0. The teams they've beaten, the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets. Gross, disgusting, terrible wins. I believe you're getting an 0-9 from their combined opponent's record. They got skill. They've got skill at their skill positions. Cortland Sutton's pretty solid. Jerry Jeudy's coming back soon. Noah Fant's a solid tight end. You got Melvin Gordon in the backfield with Williams. But this is the next 4 games. We're going to learn a lot about the Broncos. And let's not forget, before the season started, Vic Fangio was on most sports books predicted to be. The odds told us that he was going to be the first coach fired this season. A lot of turmoil heading into the season. The next 4 games, they host the Ravens, they go to Pittsburgh, they host the Raiders, and then they go to Cleveland. I think that, if they don't split 2-2 here, then it's time to call them pretenders. And I think I'm already doing it. Teddy Bridgewater, he's not going to get it done. He's not going to win you a playoff game. As good of a regular season quarterback as he may be in managing games and this and that, he's not going to get it done in the playoffs. They brought in Kyle Fuller in the secondary and drafted Pat Surtain. So their defense is respectable. And Von Miller's returning to his old form. He's already got 4 sacks this season. But the Broncos are pretenders until they beat a couple of these teams here in this next 4-game stretch. I don't trust the Broncos as far as I can throw them. They're pretenders.
I mean, Andrew says all four will make the playoffs. That's saying a lot. We'll talk about that because if all four make the playoffs, then that means you think all four AFC West teams will make the playoffs, and you think the Browns and the Ravens and the Bengals will make the playoffs. It's just I really doubt that would happen there. So let's just read some comments talking about the Broncos here. Hunter and Jarrell think they're pretenders. I'm kind of with you. Like I think most people are saying that the Broncos at 3-0 are pretenders, but just because they have definitely had the easiest first three games ever, right?
No question.
Yeah, it looks
like
the
defense is for real. I believe the defense is for real, but that offense is suspect.
I mean, you're absolutely right of what we're going to find out about the Broncos against Ravens, Steelers, Raiders, Browns. Like that is now we can see how for real they are because their first three games this season, Jack, honestly look like, Wake Forest scheduling their non-conference schedule in the first 3 weeks before they play an ACC game. Seriously, like it looks like they're playing like Southeast Louisiana and Kent State and
Central Connecticut.
Like they're playing nobodies. And it's crazy to think that there are nobodies in the NFL, but the Giants, Jags, and Jets are absolutely that. They are nobodies, and they've been able to destroy all these teams and win 3 straight games by double digits to start the season. And again, they're not blowing out. I mean, they are blowing out teams, but they're not putting up a bunch of points. 27 points is their season high right now this year. So that's kind of how I feel about this. Is I think the Broncos are absolute pretenders. Let's go to the bottom left there. The other 3-0 team in the AFC are the Las Vegas Raiders, contenders or pretenders? Again, we're talking about for a playoff spot.
Yes.
Are they contenders or pretenders for a playoff spot?
The Raiders are making the playoffs this season. I am very, very confident in that. What they did on defense over the offseason, they brought in Ngakoue, they've got Solomon Thomas, and they already had Max Crosby. So that front four is really strong. You've got KJ right behind him and a decent secondary, not great. Casey Hayward's back there. And some young guys, but Derek Carr leads the NFL in passing yards through 3 weeks. Who saw that coming? I sure didn't. And they've got quality wins. They've beaten Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and the Dolphins. All three of those teams. I mean, without Pittsburgh, those other two, I mean, they have a good shot at making the playoffs.
I think the big thing with what you just said, list the teams that they've beat already.
Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Miami.
AFC.
Yes, exactly. So that's 3-0 AFC record, which holds big in tie breaks.
Yep.
If it comes down to wild card, because that division is going to be tough. But to me, the Raiders are absolutely contenders. I love what they've done on defense, and I think their offense, Derek Carr, he's finally figured it out. There's been some hitches in his game, and he's got Waller, but I do believe that wide receiver group is just not as strong as I wished it was for the Raiders. But I do think Derek Carr, this is his breakthrough season. And this is not a fluke. This is not just a hot 3-game stretch. This is not a Billy Volek, Drew Bennett run, okay, in 2004. This is the real deal. The Raiders are the real deal. They will make the playoffs.
You're saying right now the Raiders are going to make the playoffs?
100%.
100% the Raiders are making it.
If Derek Carr stays healthy, the Raiders will make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody understands that. Like everybody's quarterback has to stay healthy.
Health is assumed, yes.
The Raiders have done this before, though. Like last year, they were 6-3. Fell off a cliff. They lost 5 of the last 7 to end up 8-8.
I think that their home field, and this is something that's underestimated. They have one of the best home fields in football right now. As long as fans are continue to be allowed in at max capacity, that's an underrated aspect, and that's something that the Chargers, we're going to talk about, they don't have.
Right. No, not at all. But I think the Raiders are contenders to make the playoffs. I'm not going as far as you are going in saying that they will make the playoffs, but just because they do have a tough schedule. They got the Rams this week. That's a really, 3-0 versus 3-0 at LA against the Rams is going to be a game that you're going to want to watch. Monday Night Football is a good one. Can they take care of Chicago? You would think so. They go at Denver, so that's good, but that's a good litmus test. So they've still got some tough teams on their schedule. They got Kansas City twice. We know they do play the AFC North, so they've got Cincinnati and Cleveland, who we both probably think are the top two teams of that division. And so look, they got a pretty tough schedule the rest of the way, just because they've been able to get through what we like going into the year. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Miami.
That's
like
tough.
That's going into the year. We thought that would be tough. Baltimore overtime win, very impressive. Pittsburgh, I think the Steelers are bad. That's just me. I just don't believe that much in the
I don't
Pittsburgh
think
Steelers.
they're very good either, but it's still hard to beat the Steelers. And I mean, that's any team in the NFL. You see Pittsburgh on the schedule. I mean, they haven't had a losing record in how many years? Almost 2 decades. Like,
yeah, I just think the Steelers are about to fall off the cliff, and it started last year in December when they fell off the cliff. And then Miami, like they beat Miami. Jacoby Brissett played the game of his life, and it went to overtime. So like 2 overtime wins. Again, I think they are contenders for a playoff spot, but I'm not going to go as far as you are in saying they're going to make the damn playoffs. All right, Jack, these 2 teams. Let's start with the Los Angeles Chargers. Are the Los Angeles Chargers a contender or pretender?
They're the most curious case in the NFL to me. Justin Herbert, this is his 2nd year in the NFL. He's already having to learn a new offense this season. That offense is fantastic, by the way. You've got Keenan Allen, who in his old age is still producing at a high level. Mike Williams has bust onto the scene this season. Austin Eckler is a formidable running back that's really Justin Herbert's best friend. You know, running back he can trust to throw the ball to, and Eckler gets it done after the catch. I'm not so sure that they're contenders just yet, Austin. I'm not so sure because, you know, in the NFL, defenses and head coaches have a way of figuring out young quarterbacks. This is the 2nd go-around for Justin Herbert. The back half of last season, he had his way with NFL defenses. I think adjustments are going to be made, and they're going to find ways to stop Herbert, or at least, you know, kind of limit him in what he can do. And I'm not so sure that defense is as strong as it needs to be. But the biggest question mark on that team, they don't have a kicker. The Titans have had kicking troubles, but good Lord, the Chargers, I mean, they had Michael Badgley up until the end of the season last year.
Yeah.
I brought him in and saw what happened. I mean,
the Titans had kicker problems. The Titans had kicker problems and still won 20 games in the regular season.
The Chargers roster is not what the Titans was last year. I don't think that that's a fair comparison. And also, they have a very young quarterback. Ryan Tannehill's been to the playoffs before. You know, you mentioned last year. Ryan Tannehill.
I'm just saying regular season. I'm not talking about. I'm just saying regular season.
I understand, and you know what? There's a very real possibility that the Chargers make the playoffs. But for now, I'm trusting NFL defenses to kind of adapt to what Herbert's given them on film and make adjustments. And to me right now, I can't trust the Chargers. That home field's a big problem too. They are the only team in the NFL who, for 17 weeks of the season, play road games. It's almost like Vanderbilt down in West End. You know, opposing teams go to LA, they're on vacation, they fill up the Chargers stadium because the Chargers don't have fans in LA. That's a Rams town. And they take it over. The Chargers are on the road 17 times in the season.
Danny says Herbert is the biggest dude out of the 4 contenders. So Danny's talking about the Broncos,
Herbert's
Raiders.
solid.
Herbert's, I think I would take Justin Herbert over Derek Carr in a freaking heartbeat. Like Joe Burrow's having a good start to the season too. We'll talk about the Bengals here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think so. You're saying Chargers pretenders?
Oh, man, it's towing the line. I've got to go one way or another. I'm going to say they're contenders. Obviously, they're contenders to make the playoffs. They've got too talented of an offense not to. But they're the most. I'm the most skeptical of the Chargers.
Really, I think the chat, based on our conversation about the Titans, the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Browns, people in the chat were thinking that the Chargers should have been in that conversation. Now they just beat the Chiefs, and so and it was in Kansas City, and that's a big time win to establish there.
But jumping on the Chargers bandwagon right now is buying high on them. I
get what you're saying. And again, just like we said about the Broncos, we're going to learn a lot over the next 4 weeks, really 3 weeks, about the Chargers when they play Raiders, Browns, Ravens, right? Like and tough defenses. Like that Chargers Browns game, really all 3 of them, Chargers Raiders, Chargers Browns, Chargers Ravens, the next 3 weeks, can Justin Herbert win 2 of those? If they come out of that 4-2,
yeah,
and they're then I think the Chargers are for real. I think they are contenders for a playoff spot right now. But if they, again, I think if they split or go 2-1 in these next 3 games, they have a legitimate chance to go for the division because they've got the one head-to-head over the Chiefs, and that would set them up very nicely for what they do. Because then they have the Patriots, the Eagles, the Vikings, and some lighter games there. But I think that the Chargers are absolutely a contender for a playoff spot, and the next 3 games can determine whether or not they're a contender to battle the Chiefs head-to-head for that division title in the AFC West. Isn't it crazy that the AFC West is this solid?
From top to bottom, they have the best records in the NFL. The Broncos 3-0, the Raiders 3-0, and then you have obviously the Chargers 2-1, Chiefs 1-2. But I think we can all agree the Chiefs aren't going to stay in the bottom of that division. Something's going to turn, and not all 3 teams. Well, I guess they technically could make the playoffs. I strongly doubt that all 3 teams end up making the playoffs out of that division.
Yeah, and Juan says we need to have this conversation again after week 13. We're probably going to have it in like 4 weeks. We're probably going to have it.
We're only 3 weeks in.
Yeah, I know. We're probably going to have this conversation several times just because it's always like see where the wind's blowing and see what everybody feels like. I have a guess that we'll probably have this conversation after the Titans go Bills Chiefs. Like that's probably the next time we'll revisit that to see where the Titans stack up once we get to there. All right, the Bengals. Jack, are the Bengals contenders or pretenders for a playoff
Come on,
spot?
guys. They're complete and total pretenders. They have one of the worst coaches in the NFL. Joe Burrow, this is his second season too, although, that ACL is tough to come off of. But they beat Minnesota because Minnesota shot themselves in the foot. They had 12 penalties in that game. It takes them overtime to beat the Vikings. They beat Pittsburgh this past week, and they look good doing it. But like you mentioned, this isn't the same Steelers squad. This is more of a 7-10 Steelers squad than it is, a wild card, even division contender team. They lost to the Bears in Andy Dalton's revenge game. That's concerning because the Bears last week, they threw for 1 total net passing yard. I get Justin Fields was in, but that's kind of a reflection on the offense as a whole and the offensive line and everything like that. They've got great wide receivers, but they failed to address their offensive line in the draft. Now that comes with Jamar Chase, who has been probably a rookie of the year. He's probably the rookie of the year leader right now, in my opinion. Mixon has been outstanding this season. I just don't believe he can continue being a top 5 rusher in the NFL. They're tied for 3rd in the league in giveaways, which is a big problem for me. They've given the ball up 5 times through 3 games. And, when a team is not as talented as its competition, you have to take care of the football. They haven't shown me that they can do that yet, and I'm labeling them as pretenders because of that.
Okay, I get you. In their next 5 games, though, they've got the Jags, the Lions, and the Jets. So I'm not surprised if, right at Halloween, we're looking at the 5-3 Bengals, right? And 5-3 is a legitimate record through the first, half of the season, where the Bengals are just around to be in the wild card hunt. And depending on how they continue to progress, I think the Bengals, they're either going to continue to improve or crash and burn.
I'm
there's
betting
no
on the
middle,
crash and burn.
there's no, but you get what I'm saying? Like, there's no middle ground with the Bengals. It's either going to be like, oh, Joe Burrow's figured it out. And that, they're starting to put together. Zach Taylor's figured it out. Or it's just like, oh, they got figured out, and now they're getting just demolished.
And Joe Burrow's getting killed again behind an offensive line that was failed to be addressed last season. When you draft a quarterback number 1 overall and don't put an offensive line around him, you're asking for that. You're sabotaging the future of your franchise by doing so.
Yeah. So, like I said, the Bengals could be 5-3 after they beat the Jets on Halloween, right? Then here's where it crashes and burns. Ready? You ready for this?
I'm ready for it. Yeah.
Browns at Raiders, Steelers, Chargers, Niners at Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs at Browns. End of season.
How many games is that? Was that 10 games?
That was
9 games.
9 games.
Yeah, that's 9 losses to me.
I mean, if they
you may figure one out along.
they could beat the Steelers again or something like that because they've already beaten them. But good Lord, I mean, that's a really tough last 9 games. So you're staring at like 6 or 7 wins. So I think we agree that the Bengals off to a good start. 5-3 potentially to get their hopes up there in Cincinnati, and then absolutely crash and burn with that 9 games in the season.
If you tell Bengals fans before the season that they have a shot to win 7 games, they'll take that. They're not expecting a playoff berth.
No,
they
progress,
just want to see
man.
improvement. Yeah.
Absolute progress. All right, so let's do this little question here before we get to throwing shade, because I'm curious how you feel about this. We've already kind of labeled the Bengals as one of these, but we've talked about 9 AFC teams today. Which 2 are absolutely not going to make the playoffs? And is there somebody that we have not talked about today that you think could do something pretty good, that could be a playoff contender that we have not talked about today? But real quick, let me tell you guys about our friends at Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com to go check their inventory. So just go to WilsonCountyHyundai.com or take a nice drive out to Lebanon to see Payne Bone and his team at Wilson County Hyundai. Just I-40 East, exit 236, just 2 miles off the exit. It's a great drive to Wilson County Hyundai, and they will hook you up with the right car for you in your situation. They'll let you test drive it around the block. They'll let you take it home, a little 24-hour plus test drive, see how it feels, sleep on it, wake up, look at it outside your house, say, yeah, I can see myself in this. Drive back to Wilson County Hyundai, and then go figure out the numbers, and they'll help you make the numbers work, because that's what they do there at Wilson County Hyundai. Payne Bone and his team, fantastic crew. Go check them out. You can absolutely trust them. We've been working for them for several years now. WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
BetMGM, the king of sportsbook. Use promo code A to Z Sports as soon as possible. When this show ends, download that damn app. BetMGM, use promo code A to Z Sports. You'll get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. It's a great deal, and it's a ton of money to play around with. I say play around because it literally is free money. They're giving you free money on top of your initial deposit, up to $1,000. They'll match it. Use promo code A to Z Sports to get in on this offer while you can. Trust me, guys, it's going to be another fun week of football. You're going to want to have this when the weekend rolls around.
All right, right there. So let's go and discuss these teams again. Jack, which other teams outside of the Bengals do you think that we've talked about today that will miss the playoffs? Because we've talked about 9. There's only 7 playoff spots. So we've just labeled the Bengals as one who's out. Who is the other team in the AFC that we've talked about today that will miss the playoffs?
The Broncos. The Broncos. The Broncos are 3-0 right now. They will not make the playoffs. That division is too tough without a quarterback. In that division, you have Derek Carr, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. Teddy Bridgewater can't get it done, because you don't have to just manage games in that division. You've got to win them. Teddy Bridgewater can't do that. His first year in this offense, while the defense is solid, I don't believe the Broncos offense is good enough to hold up throughout the season, throughout a 17-game season, and make the playoffs. There's too much competition in that division and only a couple wild card spots to be had. The Broncos will not make the playoffs.
Okay. All right. It's hard to disagree with that. I think the Broncos are probably the second weakest team in our contenders and pretenders. So I agree. Which of the top 5 teams is the most likely team to miss the playoffs? Is it the Ravens?
The Ravens, because the rate that they're running Lamar Jackson, he's the 4th leading rusher in the NFL. But you have a 17-game season for the first time in NFL history. You've got to protect Lamar Jackson. If he goes down, that ship sinks. I mean, as with most teams, if their quarterback goes down, that ship sinks. But with the cluster injuries that they've already had in the training camp, they lose Marlon Humphrey and J.K. Dobbins on back-to-back plays in training camp. That's a huge blow to start the season. They still haven't figured out the running back position, and their pass defense is one of the worst in the NFL right now. I think the Ravens have, they're just a couple guys away from missing out on the playoffs. And, somebody's got to win that division, and it's going to be the Browns. The wild card's going to be a tough get for the Ravens. I truly believe that.
Yeah, same. But I also, I asked the question, who have we not talked about that could be a playoff contender? And I think the Dolphins got brought up the most. There were a couple Colts answers in the comments from you guys. But, the Dolphins squeaked by the Patriots in week 1. Absolutely destroyed by the Bills 35-0 in week 2. And Jacoby Brissett played out of his mind to lose in overtime to the Raiders in week 3. I think we've kind of got the playoff picture for the AFC. I think it's the 9 teams that we've talked about that are in the hunt, have an opportunity, because the Patriots are going to go through growing pains with Mac Jones. The Dolphins are currently going through quarterback injuries and issues with Tua being on injured reserve for 2 more weeks. I personally don't believe in the Steelers. Rashad says the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers are any good. Well, I think their defense is good, but they've got injuries on the defense.
Offensive line's terrible. Big Ben can't move. The wide receivers are banged up.
It was so obvious to me to watch the Steelers, who started 11-0 last year and then fell off a cliff because they got old immediately, like in live time. The Steelers, Big Ben can't do it anymore. So I kind of think it's these 9 teams that are going to be contending for the 7 playoff spots.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And, I'm hesitant to completely rule out the Colts, even though they're 0-3. They have 4 division wins that they're still going to grab, probably. The Jags and the Texans twice. And playing in that weak division can really help them out bouncing back. But
that's true. But
there's one team every season that just nothing can go right. Injuries are bad. They can't put it together at the end of games. I think the Colts are that team this year, and for that reason, I don't believe they'll make it, but I'm still not going to rule them out, even though they're 0-3 in this weak division with 4 wins that are still on the table, just in the division alone.
Well, the Colts, just because Carson Wentz is still hurt.
I know. I believe me, and the pass rush has been weak. They haven't hardly pressured anybody. They only hit Tannehill twice all day on Sunday. If I had to put another team in there, it's probably the Colts.
And then Michael says the Colts are going 0-4 against the NFC West. Well, the good thing in that is they've already started 0-2 against them. So there's only 2 more left, and they're 0-3. I mean, the Colts, if the Colts want any life, they must beat the Dolphins on Sunday. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Because if they beat,
is it possible? I don't know. I don't know that it's ever been done.
To get out of 0-4, it definitely hasn't. I don't think it's been done. Now, remember when Frank Reich's first year, the Colts started 1-5 and made the playoffs.
Can't really, that roster was probably a hell of a lot better than this one. And the quarterback position probably had Andrew Luck at the helm, or Jacoby Brissett. I don't know who was playing back there at that time, but the Colts defense hasn't been what it was talked up to be in the offseason. The Colts, you're right, are a death blow away from Miami. Can put the nail in the coffin this Sunday. Yeah,
Cassie says that she thinks Houston is better than the Colts. See, I'm kind of worried because I've got a bet at BetMGM that the AFC South will finish 1 Titans, 2 Colts at plus 145, and
you'll get there.
It's going to be gross, though. The Colts might be second in the division
6
at
wins.
7-10.
Yeah. It's going to be gross, and it's going to be sloppy, and it's going to be greasy. But I have a hard time believing Davis Mills wins more than 2 or 3 games. And Jacksonville right now, that's a mess. That's a big mess.
What? Oh, here's this would be interesting. Will the Colts, Jags, and Texans season wins surpass the Titans' total season wins?
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
You don't think so?
I think the Titans are going to win 10 games minimum. They got a shot at 11, and I don't see the Jags and Texans combining to win more than 3 or 4. That leaves the Colts finishing probably they'll probably have to win about 8 games to surpass the Titans win total, or the Titans win total for the season. And 3, 4 plus 8, going to finish around 11, 12. I don't know that the Colts win 8 games. I don't know.
Here's what I think. I think for that to happen, the Titans have to win 12 games. If the Titans win 12 games, I don't think the Jags, the Texans, and Colts combine for 12. I think 11 is that perfect number of I could buy either way. Because I think
you're being a Titans super homer right now. Not really. You're kind of just. You're kind of going off what's happened so far this season. Carson Wentz can't move. Quentin Nelson just got carted off the field last week. It's a real possibility that they're without Wentz for the last half of the season, and Jacob Eason has to step in. Then your 3 quarterbacks in the AFC South, aside from Tannehill, are Jacob Eason, Davis Mills, and Trevor Lawrence. So what is that, 3 rookie quarterbacks? I mean, that's not going to be done. You're not going to win 12 games combined with those guys. Especially with the supporting cast they have in Houston and Jacksonville.
I think the Colts are probably around 6 or 7 win team. I think the Texans and Jags combine for 5 or 6. And so that's where I think the Titans, if the Titans are 12-5, I think that's where they they match the rest of the division. That's how bad the division is right now.
That's a fun game to play, though. That's a great question. And man, who saw that coming?
I might have to figure. I'm gonna send a text to Alan Bell after the show to see if he can whip up some odds for us on to see if what are the odds that the Titans have more wins than the rest of the division.
I think the Titans are going to be underdogs to do so. I think they'll be at plus money, but it's a very real possibility at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. That'll be my own personal homework after the show. So that'll be fun. All right, Jack. Let's go ahead and do this. It is time for throwing shade. You haven't thrown shade in a long time, so
no.
I hope you have your shade ready today. Hope you have your shade ready. But real quick, let me tell you guys about Renters Warehouse and renterswarehouse.com. Make sure you know where to go to renterswarehouse.com to find out how much your home can rent for. There's so many different ways you can use Renters Warehouse to your benefit. renterswarehouse.com. Make sure you check out all the different things they can do for you and your family, create extra cash flows, get long-term equity, which means long-term wealth, which means you're building your retirement plan already at renterswarehouse.com. If you're looking to rent out a home for someone, for you, for your son, your daughter, whatever it might be, renterswarehouse.com has a great inventory of homes across the mid-state. That's at renterswarehouse.com. I'm going to remind you of BetMGM. Just talking about Alan Bell and Brian Edwards, A to Z Sports Picks. That they'll be back on Friday to get you ready for the weekend. But BetMGM, download the app, use our code ATOZ Sports. You get a risk-free bet up to $1,000 with your first deposit and your first bet. That's the BetMGM app right there. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. You must be 21 years or older, must be present in Tennessee. And for gambling problem support, call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Jack, it is time for Throwing Shade. It's been a while since you've been on here for Throwing Shade. We've got something new.
Yeah.
All right, Jack, I will let you start since you are the guest host today. What is your shade, sir?
So my shade today is, for all of those Titans fans who are at the game on Sunday, pregame warmups, Taylor Lewan for player introductions gets showered with a few boos, and he addressed it post-game. He was pretty shocked by it. Now, I'm not throwing shade at the people who booed him. But because, if you're a season ticket holder, if you pay to watch these guys play, you have the right to boo. Whether you exercise it or not is up to you. I'm not going to get on you for booing. My problem is I'm throwing shade at the people who compare their job to NFL players' job. Their 9-to-5 job selling insurance, selling apartment space, whatever the hell it is not the same as playing NFL football. You can't compare your day, in your job, at your office, to NFL players' office, which is the football field. Those two jobs just don't relate. I hate when people do that. Well, if I did this at my job, I would be fired. And we went over this on the podcast. Well, your job is you're not one of the best athletes in the entire world. You're not a top 5 employee at your position, or a top, really, I guess it would have to be top 30, 35 employee at your position internationally. That you can't compare what you do at your 9-to-5 job, your desk job, to what Taylor Lewan and those guys do out on Sunday. So when you say, if I performed like that at my job, I'd be fired. Well, you don't have the athleticism, the agility, the strength, the skill, the resume, the 3-time Pro Bowls to fall back on. You don't have any of those accolades at your job. You can't compare what you do at your work to what these NFL players do at their work. I'm throwing shade at everyone who compared Taylor Lewan's poor job performance in week 1 coming off an ACL to what they do day in and day out at their jobs, at their 9-to-5s. And that's my shade this week, Austin.
I think that's good shade. I always think about whenever I hear an athlete in a post-game press conference like that, I always think to myself, what would it be like if I had to give post-game interviews on my performance? Think about what you guys would have to go through if you had to give a post-workday interview that thousands and thousands and thousands of people were going to listen to of how you performed that day. So David says, great shade, Jack. You get the love of the show.
Thanks, David.
All right, so more shade here on the show. Dustin says, my shade is those who comment first on the Facebook comments when they're consistently 3rd or 4th. That's funny. David says those transitions are so corny. Do better, guys. David, suck. We're keeping them. We're not going anywhere. Zach Goodman says he has 2 shades. Andrew says shade on the Titans mobile tickets. They suck. The lanyards for the season ticket members were way easier. I have I have heard so many bad things about the Titans situation and what they're doing. Zach Goodman says double shade. First shade goes on the Jack Gentry for saying you can't spell win without Nick Westbrook-Akine, which was a funny comment.
You can't spell win without NW.
I mean, it's true. Zach's second shade goes to Chattanooga weather. Have had 4 seasons in 2 weeks. Yes, from 90 to rain for a week to 50 to 60 for a few days and back to 80. Yeah, I that's why I think I'm sounding so. I don't know if I sound sick. There were a couple times
you
where
sound fine. I believe you're coming across.
Oh, there were a couple times. There were a couple times today in the show where I thought I was like wheezing because I had to like get some stuff out of my throat because of the situation I'm going through. Noah says.
I was going to say, Ryan Gray says Jack is a fool. You're playing in front of a crowd and they can boo if they want to. I said that to start. You can boo if you want. I've booed players at games before too. I'm just saying, don't go compare your life to their life as a professional because they are not comparable.
Yeah, so if you're going to throw shade, make sure you understand what you're throwing shade at there. Noah says, once again, throwing shade at the 300 level concessions gets worse every home game. I've heard nightmares about that as well. Aaron says, kind of hard to throw shade today, which is good. I guess Aaron's having a good week. My shade, Jack, I've got a video with my shade, and you're going to be all about this. I saw this morning, and it was just a stupid, uninformed opinion by somebody I really respect, Michael Wilbon.
Because of Lane Kiffin. The answer is Alabama because of Lane Kiffin. There's nothing to be proud of if you're a college footballer or any other sport from Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's a clown. Lane Kiffin has been an embarrassment at multiple stops. I mean, nobody's going to run out there and say, yeah, I want Lane Kiffin right here on the logo representing me. The answer is Alabama, Tony. Lane Kiffin's a cute little story for guys like us who have to talk about sports every day, and we can come in Monday and say, ha, 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 Lane Kiffin. Once again, Lane Kiffin equals embarrassment at some point wherever he is. Alabama.
He hasn't been at all.
So my question to Wilbon is, list me the places that Lane Kiffin has been an embarrassment.
Florida Atlantic, he won 11 games twice.
Like, I'm just going to go through.
He took them from the depths of Matt Luke's complete and total sabotage and took him to the Outback Bowl in his first season.
Okay, so I'm going to go through. Dom says, oh, man, Austin, they just had their 20th anniversary. How are you going to throw shade at him? Look, I love PTI. Like, ask Zach and myself. PTI, a lot of things that we do with A to Z Sports is because both of us grew up loving PTI. But, man, is Mike Wilbon sounding like he does, like the time has passed him. Lane Kiffin has not been an embarrassment. Christopher says the University of Tennessee and the Raiders. One, the Raiders were an embarrassment because of Al Davis, not because of Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin was 33 years old when he got the head coaching job of the Raiders. Two, the University of Tennessee was an embarrassment. That was the most competitive team that we've seen from the Tennessee Volunteers. I mean, maybe the 2015 season with Butch Jones, but that 2009 team with Lane Kiffin, they fought their ass off. They had 2 walk-on brothers as their center and guard who had no business playing SEC football and went 7-5 with a very under-talented roster. And Lane Kiffin was like 34, 35 at that time. He left Tennessee. Look, did he do some stupid things off the field? Sure. But he was a good coach and got that program going the right direction. Then he takes his dream job at USC. And look, he got fired in year 4 at USC, but his record was 28 and 15. Like, it wasn't a terrible record. And the situation he was under was awful because Pete Carroll, his former coach, had them on probation where he lost. He was down like 15 scholarships. So Lane Kiffin has not been an embarrassment on the field anywhere. Like, the USC situation is a nuanced situation that Lane Kiffin has talked about how he would not go back to it again. Then he goes to Alabama, changes Nick Saban's football philosophy. I'll say that one more time. Lane Kiffin went to Alabama and changed Nick Saban's football philosophy. Nick Saban used to be get off my lawn, the hurry up offense is bad for football, to doing that and winning national champions with that and having Heisman Trophy winners with that. Then he goes to Florida Atlantic, does as a head coach and is very successful. And now he's got Ole Miss ranked in the top 15 in year 2. Give me a break. Give me a freaking break. Lane Kiffin is not a clown. Lane Kiffin is a top-notch offensive mind, and he's a good head coach, and we're finally figuring it out. I've been saying this for years, Jack, that Lane Kiffin is a good head coach. He should have gotten the Oregon job when they hired Willie Taggart, but that was a bad decision by Oregon. So, boom, Lane Kiffin's a really good head coach, and he's doing what he's supposed to do with Ole Miss.
Thank you, Austin. I'm so glad you brought this up. And for all those Vols fans saying that he was an embarrassment at Tennessee, how many of you guys this past offseason were on your knees begging and pleading Lane Kiffin to come back? He was young when he took that job. He did a great job up there. And you know, you're right about what happened when he was under Nick Saban. I believe he was a big part in revolutionizing college football and really turning Bama into what they are now. And Sarkisian obviously was a product of Lane Kiffin, following in his footsteps at Alabama as the OC, and now he's got a head coaching gig. Lane Kiffin is going to take Ole Miss to, a level to where they can contend in the SEC West. This year, while they don't have the talent at wide receiver like they have in the past, they still have Matt Corral. He's a front runner for Heisman. Lane Kiffin, he may be, loud on Twitter and maybe a little weird sometimes and awkward socially, but the man can coach football. The man knows offense, and it's really shown throughout his career. And I get it. The Raiders was a problem. Sending Sebastian Janikowski out for a 78-yard field goal or whatever it was, getting fired 4 days later, that was bad. But he's come a long way from that moment.
Yes. I mean, the guy is just now in his mid-40s. He's going to be around for a long time. And he's going to be really damn good for a long time. And I'm just proud to say that I've always been right on Lane Kiffin. And Zach, for the longest time, was always hating on me for how highly I thought of Lane Kiffin as a head coach. And then he goes to Ole Miss, and now Zach loves Lane Kiffin because he's a good head coach. Shocker. He's a good head coach. Zach gets him, and now he likes him. That doesn't surprise me whatsoever. So Michael says, can we throw shade on Darrington Evans? You covered yesterday picks that haven't played, and we completely let Evans slide. When is he going to play? I mean, the guy keeps getting hurt, and that sucks. It's unfortunate that Darrington Evans continues to have a lot of play robbed by injury. We have no idea what Darrington Evans can be. I think Darrington Evans can be a pretty good weapon in this offense and can do some good things, but he got to stop getting hurt. And he's eligible to come off IR now. I don't know if the Titans are going to do that yet, but we'll see what happens with Darrington Evans. But I guess it's fair shade because the guy's got to be able to stay healthy. 3rd-round pick that hasn't really done much at all. Fair shade there from Michael.
Yeah, I agree. McNichols has been fine right now, but Evans adds a different dynamic to that Titans offense. Last thing on Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
The SEC West, Ole Miss and Mississippi State would not be the same right now if it wasn't for Elijah Moore lifting his hind leg against Mississippi State and acting like he was peeing on the field after a touchdown, which eventually led to a missed extra point from Ole Miss.
Yep.
Matt Luke then gets fired. Lane Kiffin's hired. So what does Mississippi State do? They say, oh, man, Ole Miss has a coach. We're going to get rid of Moorhead. We bring in Mike Leach. It wouldn't have happened if Elijah Moore didn't lift that hind leg in the end zone. I promise you.
No, you're absolutely right. It's the best fake pee ever. I don't understand the outrage over somebody fake peeing.
I say build a statue of it.
And then it was almost as bad as the outrage for Randy Moss fake mooning. He didn't actually pee. He didn't actually moon the crowd. He just acted like he faked it. How ridiculous do you have to be to find that offensive? Ugh. But anyway, all right. All right. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Jack and I got to run. We got a meeting to get to here at 9:30. But man, good Wednesday show. Glad to have you guys along. We'll be back for a Titans Thursday tomorrow on a Magic Bucket. Luke Worsham will rejoin me as well. Don't forget the Tighten Up Podcast and the A to Z Sports Podcast Network. So go check that out throughout your day as well. Buck Rising tonight, A to Z Sports Primetime. We'll catch you later.